brought to you by one of our conference's gold sponsors, Go Educate. To tell you a little bit about Go Educate and to introduce our keynote speaker, would you welcome Go Educate's Chief Marketing Officer, Tim Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Box. It's an honor to be here today introducing Dr. Aaron Thompson and to be with this incredible group of leaders and drivers of higher education. The theme of this conference, Disruption Through Entrepreneurship, Radical Transformation of Higher Education in a Just-in-Time World, could not be more perfectly aligned with Go Educate and its mission to help everyone seeking a job find the right pathway that leads to employment opportunities. My name is Tim Johnson. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Go Educate. As someone from the world of marketing and advertising, working with industry leaders like Samsung, Google, HP, Hyundai, to bring their voice, messaging, and products to a global stage, I look at the problem of why we have so many open jobs in the US and so many unemployed as being one of the most pivotal socioeconomic problems that we need to solve and do so quickly. It's been near impossible to connect the dots between employers, students, job seekers, and education and training providers without the right messaging, marketing, and access information reaching the right people, until now. Go Educate has built and operationalized an opportunity portal that connects and aligns the critical dots through a powerful end-to-end ecosystem that utilizes social marketing, skills and interest matching through a first-of-its-kind education to employment marketplace. We're focused on reaching students in their early ages of career exploration and those entering or enrolled in school or credential programs without any guidance. Parents who have preconceived notions around certain careers, people who are seemingly unmotivated or simply unaware, job seekers, career changers, or the unemployed searching for their next move, employers that miss potential and viable candidates due to requirement, credential, training, and skills misalignment, and institutions that funnel through students, of which 40% say they're unsure of the value of their degree or are not using it in their career, and state commerce organizations that are looking to grow and retain their intrastate workforce. The Opportunity Portal is a technology utility that's available 24/7, 365, and reaches the public in an entirely new way. Most importantly, we're here today because we want to learn Kentucky's employment and education needs so that we can all finally get to work getting Kentuckians into work. If you'd like to see the Opportunity Portal in action and how it can work to transform the lives right here in Kentucky, we welcome you all to our booth following this session. And now I'm extremely honored to introduce Dr. Aaron Thompson. Dr. Aaron Thompson grew up in Clay County, a very rural and very poor area of Kentucky. Getting a high school education, much less a college education, was not in the plans for most Clay Countyans. But Aaron knew that education was his ticket out of poverty and would open the doors for him in the future. He not only graduated from high school, but also went on to earn his bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees. To say that Aaron is a passionate advocate for higher education is an understatement. He knows that college education can do for you. In his professional career, Aaron has served in multiple positions, including a long-time tenure at Eastern Kentucky University, where he was a faculty member, provost, and executive vice president. Now, as president of Kentucky's Council of Postsecondary Education, Aaron has made it his personal mission to improve the lives of all Kentuckians by developing a more responsive and accountable higher education system. He wants Kentucky's colleges and universities to be just as concerned about student success as they are on student access. His commitment has paid off. A recent report published by the Council tracked high school graduates from the class of 2011 for 10 years through college and into the workforce. The data was clear. Higher education pays. For those individuals who earn college credentials in Kentucky, they will earn substantially more in their first 10 years after high school graduation than those individuals who just earned a high school diploma. The evidence disputes today's popular narrative that college isn't worth the time and money. Aaron is also a prolific writer, having authored numerous books on diversity, cultural competency, first-year experience programs, retention, and student access. The common theme throughout is the importance of good institutional leadership. His presentation today marries his passion to see all students succeed with a commitment to promoting the need for today's college and university presidents, and to embrace transformative leadership. Please welcome to the stage the President of Kentucky's Council on Postsecondary Education, Dr. Aaron Thompson.
I look young, right? Good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Hello. Come on. You know, I just got through eating an Italian sandwich. There's every reason in the world that I will go to sleep on you, so your job is to keep me awake. Good to see everyone. Seriously, the power of leadership and the power of conversation, to me, is exactly what this conference is all about. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my good friend Jay Box. Jay and I go way back. Don't know how well you know Jay, but Jay and I have done a few things together over the years. The item I will mention quickly is that back in 2010, the state was looking at creating a seamless transfer between between their 2-year higher ed institutions and their 4-year higher ed institutions. They've had several, Jay, I don't know how many laws on the books before that basically told us we had to do it. And it was a complete failure every time. So they were going to come up with a new innovative law telling us once again we had to do it. And we quickly said, okay, that's not innovation. That's not going to get what you want. Can you tell us what you really want? Well, we really want to be able to have a seamless transfer system in place that would allow our 2-year students to be able, without missing a beat, transfer to our 4-year institutions and get full credit. I said, okay, let us design it for you. So I'm happy to say Jay and I were the primary architects of a seamless transfer system that they wrote it into law. We helped them write it into law. And it worked. Now, so innovation is truly about communication. Innovation is truly about not waiting for a summative result on something to tell you that you need to do something. Innovation happens at the time. People say constantly, well, we're coming out of COVID, what are we going to do to innovate? What are we going to learn from this time? And I'm saying it's really the wrong question. The right question is, how do we come together in the middle of COVID to figure out what we need to do now and what we need to do 10 years from now? Not because of COVID, but because we're going to have other interludes like COVID. And so this conversation, I think, is crucial. There's so many things. I know I don't have a long time, and I'm sure Jay and everybody else saying, you know, you really need to get where you want to go. Well, where I want to go today is exactly to that point, to talk about innovation as far as leadership. I'm going to pretend I'm a professor again, that I've been for way over 30 years. I know I don't look it, right? Yeah. Thank you. But talk a little bit about leadership. And I want to ask you a question. Give me your definition of leadership. I'm going to just take 2 people for the sake of time. Give me your definition of leadership. Don't read it from a Maxwell book either, by the way. I should have been John Maxwell, because I could have taken all this stuff and put it in a pretty package and be rich now. Instead, I'm here talking to you all, y'all not paying me anything. You know? What's your definition?
Well, the way I measure leadership is how much greater is the capacity of the organization that when you left than when you came.
So you put it within an organizational context, right? A positional.
Or whatever it happens to be.
That's right. You can formulated within a positional or a formal setting, right? Give me another one. Yes?
Bridge between the people you serve and what you're hoping they'll get, both inside the structure and outside.
Yeah. When you're thinking about transformative leadership, it transforms itself into some object almost, like a formal organization. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be a transformative leader without ever being a part of a formal organization, right? So it is a process about building yourself while you're in fact being able to develop that competency in such a manner that you can help others build theirs. And that is crucial to this conversation, I think. Now, today I'm going to contextualize it within the facets of those that we have left behind in our area. And we're still doing it. And if you look at what's happening even in P12 now, we've got a lot more work we're going to have to do in the future. So if we waited to get the test scores back from P12 to see how COVID affected the learning, then we're not going to be very good in transformative leadership. Because we already knew it, right? Who did not know it? So what are we waiting for, you know? So empirical evidence is one thing, substantive understanding is another. Leadership is about substantive understanding and using empirical data formatively or summatively in a manner that helps you to transform whatever you want to transform. It's that simple. This is where we fail, I think, in higher education and leadership. I've been in leadership and higher education now for a long time. But I see this happening all the time. We are questioning why we cannot be transformative. We don't say that's what we're doing, but that's what we're doing. You get into a room and start talking about transformation, what are we going to say first? Someone tell me. You've been a president for a while, some of you. What are you going to say if I bring you into the room as the head of higher education in Kentucky? I do all the time, as Jay can tell you. I bring presidents in the room all the time and talk about, let's do something transformative. What's the answer I'm going to get? Quickly.
What's it cost?
What's going to cost? Can I use that money for something else? Or I just got too much work to do. Am I right? Transformation becomes an interesting paradigm within the hands of people we call leaders. That's the scary part of the conversation. Now, my chief of staff is here, and not only does she try to keep me out of trouble, she tries to keep me from overly communicating, for one thing, but overly committing. Because I have this habit of saying, if we've got a shot to do something, damn it, let's do it. Right? So I'm not talking about being haphazard either, because that's what popped in your brain then, right? Well, you just can't be haphazard, you just can't do everything. Well, absolutely not. So parameters need to take place. But operational definitions, that's what we're not really good at. We're good at actually regurgitating old operational definitions, like if we have a completion agenda, if we increase the numbers, we have actually accomplished something. My argument is that if we don't have a quality metric in there while we're doing it, we may not have accomplished much. Or if we in fact did it all for rich kids or white kids, maybe not so much. So operational definitions around transformative leadership really focuses on where we need to be tomorrow. Yes, you have to know where you've been. You have to know where you were at yesterday. Do that, yeah, I guess. But it's not totally focusing on the base as much as it is how you want to reshape the future. And that's really what this conversation is about. It is about trying to convince other people to buy into your argument, true enough. It is about leading a team, it is about forming a team, it's about communicating to a team, it's about listening to a team. It's about all those words that we've accumulated as a part of our top 10 for the way we describe leadership. I get that. But it is about visioning out truly what you want to accomplish before you start building that. I say all the time, in this room, I bet if I asked everybody how many of you want to be innovative, everybody would raise their hand. If I asked you how many of you believe in diversity, everybody would raise their hand. If I asked you how many of you value innovation, you would raise your hand. If I asked you how many value diversity, raise your hand. If I asked you to give me an operational definition of both, what would happen? We are disconnecting our values from the outcomes. That's what's important. I've lost a lot of jobs because I looked too innovative. I actually have written in a letter that someone gave me, we really thought you were the best candidate, but we just thought you were too progressive. That's pretty good. Thank you. It's like having a student evaluation I got several years ago from a student that says, "You're the best teacher I ever had. I learned more from you than anyone else, but you really make us write too much." I said, "Well, thank you." So this idea of formulating innovation comes in this fashion, obviously, right? By the way, this comes from my latest book. Please buy it. I still have kids I'm putting through college. But we tended to, and I want to say this carefully, even at conferences like this that has the right word in it, we tend to talk much about what we've done and not enough about what we need to do. Today I want to talk a little bit about both of those in Kentucky within, I promise, Dave, the scope of time that you've given me. So how do I do this? How should you do it? I really spend a lot of time. I tell people, if you are a leader in a formal or an informal position, do you spend at least a half an hour on being proactive? Not thinking about what's on your schedule, but do you spend a half hour about thinking about what should be on your schedule to be innovative? And I'm not talking about people say, I do that as I drive to work. No. This needs to be a dedicated time. Personal reflection about what you are and who you are as a leader is crucial. Not who you are as a manager or the things you have to get done, but who you are as a leader. Do you have a leadership statement that is full of who you are and what you aspire to be, and have it in such a way people are going to judge you by it? Are they going to critically evaluate you on the statements that you made, that you've written down and put on your wall? Are you willing to share things with your staff even when they don't want to hear pushback against you? In other words, are you willing to lead a staff? My job that I see more than anything else, and just like you, I started out a second ago saying we have a choir. And I look at my staff that I built on purpose to build the choir. And each one of them have their part in singing. Some sing better than others. Some play musical instruments better than others. But they're still my choir. But my job as the leader of that choir, the conductor, is to not say that I know how to conduct the choir. My job is to help them to play music better and sing better. That's tough in leadership. Because we tend to build a team and do what? Manage the team. You're not just saying, I got a choir, now I'm a conductor of a choir. Your job is to evaluate yourself on the ability to help them to sing better and to help them to play music better. This is where we fail, I think, in higher education. We tend to move very slowly. We tend to create more committees so we can move slower. Right? And that becomes a management paradigm. How do you create a vision and then share it with people that want to buy into it? This is my personal leadership statement. I won't read it to you, but I wrote it in 1990. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be changed, but it's been hanging in my office, as Lee can tell you ever since she's known me. It's in my office at home now because of COVID. But it's hanging on my wall because I want people to judge me on this is what I really believe that I am, what I wanted to be, what I aspire to be, and I may even have a misspelled word up there, who knows. But the idea that I didn't do this just as an exercise to say, look at me, I'm a great leader, I know how to write a statement. I did it because I wanted to challenge myself to be innovative just as a leader, no matter what organization I was working for. How does this apply to what we're trying to accomplish? You know, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. People say they're data-driven all the time. I love that phrase. We're data-driven. Then I say, show me how you're data-driven. And they show me, look, we can tell you where gaps are. We can show you that we need to improve here. I said, okay, but how are you driven by that? That's when it gets confusing. Well, we actually brought, I believe in technology, so anything I say that doesn't sound like that should challenge me. Just by buying technology doesn't do anything. By using technology as a tool to actually drive where you want to go can do a whole lot of cool stuff. So I've been on campuses whereby people just bought technology. I said, well, what'd you do? Well, we bought this technology piece. Well, how are you going to do it? Well, I don't know if it's going to communicate with that or not. I don't know. I don't think I can do what you want me to do, Thompson, because my technology doesn't communicate. Y'all know what I'm talking about too, right? I'm not talking about you vendors you're trying to sell. But I look at a vendor, and Lee and Jay and other people can tell you, I say, okay, tell me how this is going to drive what I need and how it's going to interact with the future of where I want to go. That's what I'm interested in. I don't necessarily care if you can prove to me that 100 people have used this technology and they love it. I want you to be able to create a vision with me with that technology that helps me to drive where I want to go. I want to know I got analytics, in other words, not just data. I want to know that it can help me to develop policies that are actually workable, measurable, and continuously improves the direction that we want to go in. That matters. We have to take ownership of this. We can no longer push this off to somebody else. Higher education, we should not push it off to have corporate America tell us what they want. We should be asking them, let's work together, because I know you don't know what you fully want either. We may not know what we fully want either, but we can figure it out together. And should be working together to not just create a workforce for the jobs we need now, but one for the future. How can we do that together? That matters to me. That data that I'm mentioning tells me a story in that line. Y'all ready for something? I want you to focus on this. What do you see? What do you see? Someone said a sunset. What else do you see?
A horse.
Is a horse? How many sees a horse? Raise your hand. Anybody not see a horse? Okay. Is it a sunset? Do I?
It's a giraffe.
It's a giraffe. Yeah. Is it a sunset or a sunrise? Yeah. Is the horse facing us or reaching back? His head going back?
I see it.
You see it both ways? Yeah. I wouldn't want to be driving with you. Not joking. What's the point of this toward leaders?
There's more than one way to look at something.
Possibly. And then there's one way to look at it. How many of you see a horse? That's the one way to look at it. If you get lost in the stuff that doesn't matter, the noise around it, you will never lead that horse to water. You understand what I'm saying? That's an important piece to remember about innovation and leadership, that you need to focus on the horse. If we have gaps that exist in our system, focus on the gaps. You're not going to make everybody happy when you operationalize that. Because right now in Kentucky, we have issues with our low-income, adult populations, and our people of color, and I'm specifically talking about Latinx and African Americans. People are going to say, well, but you're leaving out A, B, C, D, E, F, G. No, I'm not leaving them out. I'm just saying that I've got to focus right now on the horse. And tomorrow I may have another horse. Who knows? But the idea that if you're looking at innovation, you've got to be able to not just focus on those items that are biased to some of us, but the agreement that we all have. And that's crucial to this conversation. Bias affect our work in many ways. When I started doing all this work around gap closing, student success, it was amazing how many biases I heard. Well, we're never going to be able to hire black faculty. Why can't we hire black faculty? Someone told me when I took over the hiring role, when the dean started answering to me at one of my institutions about 20 years ago, they said, well, we can't hire black faculty. I said, why? I'm a black faculty member. You know, you hire me. Well, you're different. Why are you different? Well, why am I different? Because you are from Kentucky and you like Kentucky. Okay. I said, guess what? I'm going to show you how to hire black faculty. So I worked with a team who said they wanted to hire a black faculty member. It became our horse. So I went from 9 black faculty members on that campus to 49 when I left. And they were top-notch candidates. Why? Because we focused on the horse. And sometimes we have biases that we don't know we do. That's what hurts, in my opinion, good transformation. Because we get lost in if it's a sunrise or a sunset. These are crucial, I think, to the ways that we need to be thinking about moving the paradigm. These affect our institutions, as you all know, because let me tell you something right now. Status quo, this is my academic word. I know you are filming me, so I shouldn't say this, but this is the academic word I use. Status quo sucks. Why? Because then time has passed you by. You're still in the same place and everything else has moved. This is crucial to understand the difficulty of moving an organization. So this is what we know. For me, I think of diversity in this line. I know I'm going to have to hurry you. We have to think of, as we operationalize diversity, we have to operationalize it in the same way we do every competency we have on our campuses. We have writing competencies, we have reading competencies, we have all kinds of science competencies. Well, cultural competence is diversity in an operational way. How many of your faculty know how to teach students no matter where they're from? Cultural competence. How many of you hire with the idea that we've got this and that learning comes through a process of a variety of experiences? You learn more from people different than you do from people like you. If I have 10 people in a department that think alike, look alike, act alike, guess what? Learning cannot happen in the most highest form that we argue that we do in higher ed. Right? Higher ed is about higher order thinking. So, operationalize diversity in higher order thinking. This is what we know, the way the brain works. How many are into brain stuff? I'm into brain stuff. I like to be in the brain stuff because it tells me a lot of stuff, right? If you hire people that put them in an organizational situation where they're going to think alike, then you're on the bottom end of a lower thinking paradigm. You can't help it. It becomes groupthink. It becomes a way that people are going to use their own biases. I want to train everybody the way I was trained when I got my PhD. That was the best way, right? You start stereotyping about who you're going to choose for the next faculty member because that person looks like you. And guess what, students? What happens to students? They come in to higher ed. By the way, how many of you know this? I know you all know a lot about learning. That's why we need to shift from a teaching paradigm to a learner's paradigm. Guess when we get people from K-12, let me just ask you this. What's the similarities with very high-performing students from K-12, academically high-performing, and those students that don't perform academically high? What's the similarity? Y'all are higher ed leaders. I know you know this answer, right? You know about the pipeline. Well, I'll just tell you, they all are lower level thinkers. They're basic thinkers. How many of you knew that? That, as a matter of fact, how many of you ever been in the classroom and decided that you're going to have a conversation around the test? You're going to have a test next week and you're going to offer a review. You're in a freshman class. So you can ask any question you want. Students, ask me any, I want to answer. I want to make sure I help you to prepare for this test. What's the first 3 or 4 questions they're going to ask you?
Is this going to be on the test?
Is this going to be on the test? Is it true or false? Multiple choice, right? They're all lower level thinking, only because that was the way the system was built, on rote memorization process. I give it back to you, you make A in my class, you're smart, right? So this is what we know we have in common. Doesn't matter what they are academically coming in. What we have to do is to get them to move up that ladder. So by the first year in college, we should have them at least have a cultural awareness, cultural sensitivity, that they know that diversity is good and they can learn more from people different than them. That is an operational definition. You may not be able to teach them about white privilege because that gets on up there to some cultural acknowledgement and cultural acceptance. But they can be put in a situation where they learn from other people. Whether they're gay, lesbian, whether they're black, white, whether they're whatever, right? Whatever religious affiliation they belong to. So operationalize this. This is what we did in Kentucky, and I'm going to push it forward quickly. The way the brain works, this is a leadership paradigm. I'm going to do this in 1.5 minutes, Jay, so be ready. The way it works, the way we know we need to be scaffolding our educational system and curriculum and professional development and in our own leadership dynamics, we start out with awareness. Awareness is, what do you believe about what you're doing? If you're a leader, what do you believe about leadership? What do you know about leadership? What do you understand about leadership to be based on fact and not on fiction and bias? We call this building your IQ. It's building your knowledge base. And you cannot, in fact, be a good leader until you start in this place first. You've got to build your knowledge base about what leadership is, whether it's reading a book or going and listening to one of you all talk like you do here. Whatever, how do you build that? The first awareness is awareness based on knowledge. It's also a self-evaluation place. You have to look at yourself honestly and have other people help you to do it. So that's first A is about building your IQ. Second A is about acknowledgement. Whatever you believe about the people you serve, that will have an effect on those people that you serve, whether it's your employees or the students. That acknowledgement is called social intelligence. You cannot have social intelligence unless you first have what? Knowledge. It's impossible. That leads to acceptance. You are what you eat. If you don't move out of status quo, you eat in status quo. Acceptance is saying, if I move to a learner's paradigm, if I find out about little Aaron, who's from Clay County, Kentucky, who came from an illiterate father and an 8th grade mother, knowing that that has a way that he can look at education, or you're an adult learner that's coming in, that you're coming back into college because you really want to help your children to have a new way of thinking about life. Acceptance is about empathy. You have to put yourself in the space of the people that you're serving. That's emotional intelligence, which is the highest form of intelligence and the highest form of leadership paradigm. Did you know that? You want to be a good leader, go through those 3 steps. That leads to the last one, action. You've got to build a strategic process, agenda, planning session, whatever, to create a continuous improvement model that you're able to measure on the operational definitions that you find to be important to move your organization forward. So the other 3 are good, and you have to do it. But unless you put it into action, what you've done is you've had either a group thing or you had an individual thing. So how do you put those in place? I just talked about all this. I'll leave this with you, haven't had. People talk about racism all the time. By the way, when you hear people talk about anti-racism, please understand that can only be operationalized is in an organizational setting, that you look at your institution to find out what sort of gaps that are still there, what sort of institutional discriminatory policies you still have, processes that you still have, practices that you still have. Racism is truly a social concept. Anti-racism is a social concept. Operationalizing a strategic plan that's going to destroy those institutional discriminatory processes and practices you have in place. If you want to create an anti-racist campus, that's the way you have to do it. Okay, quickly, DEI. Diversity is like I look at a dance. That's what this conference is, a dance. If you're going to have a dance, you invite people from all different backgrounds, the way they think, the way they act, the way they look, and so on. That's diversity. It's an aspect of the population. That's inviting different people with different things to the dance. Okay? Inclusion, I'll just say this and then I'll run through it like a time. Inclusion is you ask them all to dance. Honestly, ask them all to dance. Equity is because I tell you, I'm a great dancer, but J-Box not so much. Equity is about giving Jay enough lessons where he can try to be as good as I am, right? Equity are about inputs. It's not assuming everybody's as great of a dancer as Aaron Thompson. This is where we failed in higher education. So equity really has a strategic process in place with practical outcomes. That's the way you have to look at DEI and to have them all in places. Tell you quickly what we've done in Kentucky. We focused on this 2016. We decided to build a performance funding model around equity, build a strategic agenda around equity. We set it for the campuses, and we decided to have a diversity equity policy that focused on cultural competence and gap closing instead of just the traditional diversity policy. That's our 3. Right? And so we were focused, we operationalized, we want to truly focus on URM students, STEM-related areas that we needed to do, and our low income. Those are the areas we wanted to increase everybody. Our agenda was, our North Star was to get to 60 by 30. 60% attainment by 30, because that correlated with a strong, educated workforce that can correlate with a strong, thriving economy. So we had a North Star. Quickly, I will just say these are some of the things we've done in the last 3 years. We've had a decrease in the number of students coming in. About 50% of our students from high school that are graduating high school going in higher ed. We have a pipeline problem. Period. I call it pipelines, process, pathways, and potholes. We have to design things around those 4 P's to know how we're going to move this. But just to let you know, I want you to see this. Undergraduates have increased tremendously in their low income. We went out and purposefully brought more people in, period. KCTCS, we've had a falling enrollment there a lot, and so we have to look at the entirety of the pipeline, even the adult learners coming back. But the area they've had the greatest increase has been the underrepresented minorities who's not low income. So by the way, we break down our data in very microscopic ways because they tell you different things. If you put them in an aggregate group, it doesn't tell you much, right? Overall progress rates. We looked at what we want to see. We want to see retention rates, completion rates. We want to see attainment rates as a whole. So what you will see here, all of our students, I'm proud, I would never thought I'd see in Kentucky that all of our four-year institutions would be at an 80% retention rate. Who would have ever thought? Right? I would have never thought, and Jay Box knows this, I'm not saying anything he doesn't know, but Jay, would you have ever thought that we'd be, and Jay, I will give him a lot of credit. When he came in, higher ed, his first, as president of KCTCS, first couple of weeks we talked about, can this be a student success agenda? And Jay said, that's the way I want my presidency to be. KCTCS, look at those numbers in retention. And these are, in fact, our lower academically prepared students. But I want you to look at the percentage in the gap closing. Kentucky's closing gaps faster or as fast than any state in the nation. I'm proud of that. I wish I had more time to go over these numbers. They're kind of cool. If you look at public universities and 6 years graduation rates, look at that. Closing gaps once again there. If you look at KCTCS, same way. Not as fast as we want. The gap's not closing as fast as we want, but they are increasing everybody. So our goal was to set opportunity goals, not squeezing. So even though KCTCS not closing gaps as fast, 11.4% of all students, but all URM, 11%. Guess what? In the growth, they did. These are the ways that we decided to do this. If you look at overall degree and credential attainment, I want you to take a look at that. 60% increase in our URM in the last few years. Overall, 30% increase. Let me tell you, this was 12 years of budget cuts while we did this. It's about focus. So, you don't have the ability to motivate anyone as a leader. You have the ability to be a hell of an inspiration, though, to get people to be motivated. I'm going to leave you with this. I know we're out of time, so I probably don't have time for questions. What I do know is that if I've learned anything in life, and for as long as I've been a leader, is that I know very little. And I'm always willing to know more, especially from folk like you all. Opening yourself up to new knowledge and a new way of thinking is powerful. Opening yourself up to it without creating a path, a set of strategic goals, a measurement process doesn't get us where we need to go. I am out of time. Do I have time for one question? Oh, I do? Thank you. 5 questions. I will look at you all day long. No. Questions? Oh wow, what would you do if your students didn't ask a question? What would you think? What? Sir, you had a question.
So the thing that we hear about all day long, whether it's COVID related or not, are that people in all categories, students, adult learners, so forth, they're not coming forward either to fill jobs or to explore connections that are unknown to them, right? How do you get out to those people, and what do we do today? Because I see sort of institutional and employment paralysis in terms of reaching people.
Fully agree. I did a listening tour 3 years ago, and I found out that we had free college in the state. Did y'all know that? We found out about 3% of the people knew we had free college. We were happy sitting back and saying, God, we got free college. That's cool. Everybody's just going to come and know it. We started talking to young people and old people. They said, I can't afford, I'm not college material. I can't afford to go to college. I'm not college. I said, what do you think college is? Well, they thought of four-year institutions. I had adults in rooms saying, well, that's what college is. I said, no. A short-term certificate is college. It's after high school. That falls underneath too. So we have to also know our nomenclature and get it out to people. Ask people, well, they say, I can't afford to go to college. Why not? Well, my parents are poor. They knew nothing about the FAFSA or some other things. So there's a perception of affordability, and there's real affordability. We talk to our campuses, and you're letting people go because they owe $1,000. Think about return on investment, just dollar-wise. Our campuses were in paralysis, even on attainment or completion. Your point is well taken. And the interesting thing, we talk about it though. What are we called to do about it is my objective, and Lee can tell you that's a part of what we're doing. We know if we have information and not act on it, then we're paralyzed too. Right? Great question. Other questions? Well, seeing none, I will plug. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do. No matter what I was doing here, the thing I know how tough it is to be a higher education leader now, it's tough. It's tough. And I don't want to walk out without being emotionally intelligent enough to tell you that I empathize because I'm there with you. So it's tough. Thank you all so much. Appreciate it.